Hello, my name is Dan Mackay. I'm a student in the linguistics program here at Concordia. My discussion today is an extension of an experiment that was done for a course in psycholinguistics, and the experiment was conducted by myself and my two colleagues, Marie-Josée L'Espérance and Sarah Kefalo. Let me jump right in by asking the question that is the topic of my discussion today. Does a non-native speaking accent hinder listening comprehension? All right, if I were to ask that question of the audience today, some people might have the intuitive answer yes, others no. Both are plausible answers. For example, when I first considered the question, I had immediately two thoughts. One was I thought back to a time when I was in a taxi in China, and the driver kept saying to me, belly goo, belly goo, belly goo, and I wasn't able to understand. Later it was explained to me that he was trying to say very good, but it was sounding to me like belly goo. Difference in pronunciation due to his not being an English native speaker, failure of comprehension. So that would make me think that yes, actually the answer to the question is yes. On the other hand, a few weeks ago, I was listening to a television interview with Céline Dion, and she spoke in English, quite heavily accented English, and she spoke for several minutes, but I was able to understand just about everything that she said. And so that would possibly lead you to think that, well, actually, no, the answer should be no. A non-native accent doesn't necessarily make understanding more difficult. Okay, so we don't know. Is it yes or no? What do? You check you ask the experts in the field to see what work has been done on the subject. I did a survey of the academic literature on the topic, and I found that results were inconsistent. Results were really all across the board. There was no general agreement. Many researchers had done experiments that gave them results that led them to conclude that yes, having a non-native speaking accent makes understanding more difficult. Other researchers did different experiments, and from their results, they were unable to show a difference, and so they made theoretical claims that a non-native speaking accent doesn't have an effect on comprehension. All right? So what is it, yes or no? These findings are inconsistent. That's not what you would expect. It's a pretty straightforward question, and so if you were to ask it and if you defined your terms properly, and if you designed your experiments properly, you would expect to get consistent results all the time. All right, so I checked the methods section of all of these studies, and I noticed that there was differences in methodology. Some of the experiments were testing listeners on their comprehension of single words that were presented to them. For example, they would be played an audio recording of a word spoken with a native English accent and perhaps a native French speaker speaking English. All right. So, for example, maybe brother and brother, and they would test comprehension of those words. Other experiments used a different methods. They would also test listeners on their comprehension of individual words, but they would present these words to the listener as part of a larger sentence. All right, so that would provide context to the listener. Now, when you check the results, those studies that tested comprehension of individual words had no problem reporting a problem with understanding non-native accent. Those results were quite consistent. Their answer was yes. All right. Those other experiments that tested the comprehension of words that were played sequentially, all right, to form sentences, those ones often did not find any difference in comprehensibility. And then so many of those researchers made claims that actually a non-native accent does not hinder comprehension. All right. So what we did is we decided to engineer our experiment in order to test under both conditions. We tested the comprehension of individual words and also those same individual words embedded within sentences. Okay, and so under the two conditions of native English accent and in our study we used French accented English as well to compare it with. All right, so we were hoping that we would be able to get both results, yes and no, by changing one variable, and then this would provide insight into what was causing the inconsistent results. What were the results of our experiment? The results were that when we tested listeners on their comprehension of individual words, accented and unaccented, we did show a difference. We did show that it was more difficult to understand the accented words. When we used those same audio recordings of words and we presented it to the listener differently as part of meaningful sentences, then our results did not show a difference in comprehensibility. Okay, so this was really showing what was causing the inconsistency in the other researchers' reports. It was really this issue of context. Okay, now let me talk about the theoretical explanation of why. Why does context matter so much? When we listen to speech and we try to understand what the speaker is saying, we really use a two-pronged approach. Okay, we use two different listening processes, sometimes at the same time interactively. One of them is called bottom-up processing. The other one is called top-down processing. I'll explain what these mean, and then I'll give a little example to clarify. All right, so the bottom-up processing means that you start with the smallest units of data. The smallest, most concrete units of data in the case of speech are the sounds that make up the speech. All right, the listener starts with the individual sounds, puts them together in his mind to make words, goes to the next more abstract, more complex structure, the sentence, gets the meaning of the sentence. So this is purely linguistic processing, starting from the basic units, working up into the larger, more abstract, large-scale units. Okay, now the top-down processing is different. That uses the linguistic processing, as I just mentioned, but also supplements it with large-scale abstract concepts such as prior knowledge about the subject being discussed, expectations about what the speaker is probably going to say, pragmatic knowledge about what is possible and what is unrealistic in the real world. Okay, so the listener uses this prior knowledge to make guesses about what the meaning of the speaker actually is. Okay, so the bottom-up processing is purely linguistic, and that is getting information that is present in the data. Top-down processing is inferring even more information than is actually present in the data by resorting to prior knowledge. Okay, now if that wasn't clear, I'll just give an example that might help. Bottom-up processing, I say blue, and you hear the sounds b, l, u. You check your mental dictionary for a word that has those sounds in that order. You find blue, so you know what I'm saying. That's linguistic bottom-up processing. Next, top-down. What if I said the word bear? Notice that the word bear is ambiguous because there are at least 3 English words that have the identical pronunciation as bear. One of them is the animal that lives in the woods. The other one is to carry something, like to bear a burden. The other one is when you're not wearing any clothes, like you're bare naked. Okay? So if I just say bear, you don't know which one I mean. Now what if I say the word bear as part of this sentence here? I had a near-death experience the other day when I was in the woods and I saw a bear. Okay? Now you're able to use top-down processing, such as prior knowledge about bears. You know that bears live in the woods. You know that they have cubs. You know that they can be scary to people. You know that the word bear is a noun, etc. Okay? So you can use all of this prior knowledge to make guesses about which bear I actually meant. This is top-down processing. All right, actually inferring more information than is physically present in the sounds that I made. Okay, so our experiment used both. When we presented the words in isolation to the listener, they were compelled to only use bottom-up processing. When we presented the words in a sequence, then all of a sudden, top-down processing became available to them. Now, in conclusion, the point of my discussion today was to emphasize that the correct interpretation is that differences in accent always have a negative impact on comprehension. Okay, instances where there is improved comprehension of accented speech can be explained by the listener resorting to a lot of pragmatic knowledge and reasoning to make a hypothesis, to make a guess about what the meaning probably is, in spite of the deviant pronunciation. Okay, so researchers have to keep this in mind when they are planning their experiments, and particularly when they are reporting the results of their experiments and reporting claims based on those results, that the two phenomena have to be kept separate. Really just the issue of accented speech and also the pragmatic reasoning and knowledge that listeners will use to extract the meaning. Those are separate phenomena. Thank you very much and goodbye.